Well, good day everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to my front courtyard patio here in late morning, almost 10 o'clock in the morning, Mountain Daylight Time here in Albuquerque. Got the Royal KMM out here doing a little bit of typing, and I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit more about the subject of creativity, writing, and how typewriters can enable us in the creative process. And my focus in the last few months, maybe the last year or more, in this typewriter video series, when I'm not actually reviewing typewriters, the machines themselves, is really talking about the creative process and how it can be enabled with typewriters. And one of the things that I kind of picked up on yesterday was about your choice of typing paper, the kind of paper you're typing on, or your perceptions of the quality of the kind of paper you're typing on might have an impact on how free you are to just write whatever you want, stream of consciousness, onto paper. Let's talk about that today. Stay tuned. Well, I brought out a stack of typing paper, different kinds of paper, not all of it necessarily intended for typing paper. I keep a folder of various kinds of paper, and I'll typically grab this folder when I'm going out somewhere. I do have a bulldog clip on it. I use that for weighting down the edge of my paper if it's breezy outside, and then I have a correction tab sheet. Yeah, that's about all you need for one typing session. Lately, I've been typing on this AMPAD, sort of a yellowish green engineering computation paper. So it is 1/4-inch grid on the back side. The front side is blank with some guidelines, like a border, and some boxes up on top where you can type in a title or a heading or whatever. It's fairly thin paper. It's not great paper. It's not the kind of paper you'd like use fountain pen on or whatever. I was typing yesterday. I had my friend Kevin over here, and we had the table, one of the folding tables, set up in the backyard under the trees. It was a nice venue, right? Nice springtime, late afternoon typing. And Kevin really hadn't tried this thin paper, and I gave him a couple sheets of that to try out, and he actually liked it. And one of the things that we started talking about is, does the quality of the paper affect the way you think about using the paper? And what I mean by that is, I have some really nice paper here. Let's go underneath the stack and just get to it. So I have this Southworth, right? Southworth is a brand of like resume paper that you can buy here in the United States and perhaps elsewhere. I have 4 different types of it. This is the white wove finish 32-pound paper. This is the parchment. This is ivory parchment, 24-pound. There is gray parchment, 24-pound. And there is a linen type finish that is ivory colored linen, which I kind of like, and that's also 24-pound. This is really nice paper, and I noticed there's a psychology here. When I sit down and put a sheet of this really nice paper in a typewriter, I kind of feel like the paper is so good and so nice that it requires me to type something worthwhile. And I feel bad if I make typographical errors on that kind of paper, especially the stuff that's off-white, where corrections are a little bit more difficult to obscure because the white correction tabs or your white roll-on correction tape cartridges will make an unsightly white mark on that off-white paper. So there's a little more pressure psychologically in my mind to force yourself to think ahead of time in your mind. Don't make mistakes. Formulate your sentences well in your head before you put it out on paper. And what I find that does is it kind of obstructs or constricts the creative process. Like I'm not giving myself permission just to dump words on paper because the paper is too good. And so I found myself kind of searching for this alternative balance where you have paper that's good enough to receive ink from a variety of typewriters in a fairly good quality imprint, and yet at the same time the paper is inexpensive enough from a psychological standpoint, not just financial. It's inexpensive enough that you don't feel bad about just dumping words down, making errors, and having to maybe strike through corrections or whatever. And I noticed that affects the creative process. Well, I've used a lot of other kinds of papers as well for typing on. So you can find used typing paper frequently at thrift stores. Some towns and communities easier to find than others. It's actually not that easy to find old paper here in Albuquerque for some reason. I don't know why. This is erasable typing paper, erasable bond, Packwell division of whatever brand name. I don't know when these came out, probably in the 1980s, I'm guessing. Here's another one. This is Velvetone erasable bond typing paper, right, in a little cardboard pack. And then this was the Mead typing paper. And this is copyright 1988, so late 1980s Mead typing paper. And it has a kind of it's a thin paper, and it has kind of a slight cream color to it, a really nice finish. And it also had a UPC code number. And I've told you guys the story about this before. I looked for that UPC code number online to see if I could find a new version of this Mead paper. And the UPC code was ended in 39200, and I couldn't find that number, but I found a 39100. And this is the Mead, they now call it multi-purpose paper. It's very close in feel to the old stuff, a little bit different, but it still has that same similar kind of thin feel. You can still get this stuff. I like this stuff. It's thin, like typing paper, but it's new. You can buy it new. And then there's also, you can buy packs of onion skin. This is a Stuart Hall partial pack of onion skin paper. And then, you know, occasionally you can find older kind of papers like vellums and kind of other kinds of nice papers that might be fun to type on. It is fun to collect old paper like that from thrift stores, but as I said earlier, it's not always easy to find those kind of papers in your community, in the thrift stores. It depends on what kind of clientele, you know, drop stuff off at thrift stores. I think a lot of people just end up throwing paper out more so than recycling or giving it away or whatever. So obviously the balance in this search for the best kind of typing paper for the least amount of money, where you don't feel obligated to have to type well on it, but you can just junk type or freeform type. Sometimes I feel like I don't really give myself permission to use this older typing paper that I find at thrift stores, because it's a little more difficult to find this stuff locally of this vintage, and I kind of feel like there's a certain amount of value to it because of its age, and it does come from the older era of typing, and I just sort of feel like it's special. I would rather reserve it for a nice letter. So this gets down to the point of, well, what kind of paper do I really not care about? Well, you can obviously go to these big box office supply stores and buy reams of the cheapest copy paper, and they're usually on sale somewhere. You know, I just saw one today from Staples, you know, a big old ream of paper for, I don't know what it was, $3 or $4 maybe. I mean, that seems pretty inexpensive. It's not always the best typing paper. Sometimes it's a little stiff, especially if you're rolling it through an ultra portable where the feed roller springs are a little weak. It doesn't always roll as good, and sometimes it doesn't take the ink as well as real typing paper. But you need to find some kind of a paper that you don't mind just wasting. You have to give yourself permission to waste the paper. I don't see myself necessarily as a person who is all that environmentally conscious. We do recycle, and I'm aware of waste in our culture, but I don't go out of my way necessarily to save things just for the sake of saving them. But I still think about, in the back of my mind, there's this idea about I can't give myself permission to type anything on paper, because I somehow feel like the paper's too valuable. And I need to get over that, because one of the secrets of creativity is to free up your mind to be able to type whatever and have the permission to make mistakes and just to keep typing on. To type on a piece of paper so that nobody else is going to see it necessarily in that form, in that raw, crude version. Give yourself permission just to be creative and to dump words and make your own mistakes, make your own little methodology for correcting mistakes if that is what you want to do. I know for myself, it's difficult at times to leave a mistake obvious on a paper. Part of the reason is because the purpose for a lot of times where I'm writing is I'm going to put it on a blog. It is going to be visible to the public. I get self-conscious about making mistakes. But also, if you do like to do like strike-through corrections, you don't necessarily have to use X's or slashes. I mean, the X's were kind of what it was taught in typing school, typing class to use, and that's why electric typewriters have the auto repeat on the X. I actually like using the pound symbol a little bit better. It covers up the mistake a little bit better. Find your own preference for how you like to strike out words, or maybe you just don't strike them out at all. Maybe you just mistype, misspell, and just leave it and go on, because if the purpose of the typing stage of writing is for the really early stages of the rough draft of creativity, you're going to be editing this stuff anyways. It's going to go through multiple stages of revision. So the fact that you misspelled a word, as long as you know what that word is, you're going to be correcting it anyway down the road. Maybe it doesn't matter. The valuation of your paper that you hold psychologically has something to do with how free you feel in using that paper unobstructed in this kind of stream of consciousness creative process. Well, I just wanted to make this short video to encourage you guys to give yourself permission to waste paper and to just dump your thoughts carefree, no matter how crazy, outlandish, how random it appears. It may not even be real prose. It may be closer to some abstract form of poetry or whatever. Give yourself permission to put those words on paper, and if it helps, find some inexpensive paper that you care the least about in terms of its cost. Use that as an enabler to help you to get stuff from here onto here. I'm Joe Van Cleve. Stay creative, stay well, have yourselves a great day. Bye-bye.